This is Brandon Turner, and you are listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavagioni, and today's guest is Daniel Kong. So, Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So that right there is a signature move on your podcast, which actually I just got done being a guest on your show. And I said, this is the perfect opportunity to have you on the Average Joe Finances Podcast, because I've been trying to get you on here for a long time. And I'm glad we're finally able to make this happen. We're actually in Daniel's studio right now in Honolulu. So super excited to sit down and do an in-person interview. I don't get to do these too much, so it's really exciting. So
I like the in-person, like there's more energy. We had some before, like on Zoom, but like Zoom's so great, but it's just like, there's a different kind of like relationship when you're like talking to the person face to face, you know?
100%. So let's kick things off the same way I start every podcast episode. And Daniel, if you could share a little bit about yourself, tell us your story. Who is Daniel Kong?
So, I mean, I guess from like a investor standpoint is I was working at W2 for like 20 years as a software developer. 2018, I read the magical book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Kind of blew my mind, opened on my ideas to like the world of passive investing. So then in 2019, I started real estate investing while working my W2. Did some outside investing in Indianapolis. Then I did in 2020, I started doing some investing here in Hawaii. Got very, very lucky during the COVID period. Did a bunch of BRRR properties. I'm not sure if like that.
Yep.
Only rental properties, build up enough to like rental properties through the BRRR strategy to replace what I was making as a software developer. And then I was like, after 6 months of negotiating with my wife to quit my job, now we have like this extra income coming in. She let me quit. And then I've been investing in real estate ever since. Flipping houses, some commercial, some multifamily, some like random things. So
that's awesome. So, okay, a lot to unpack there, but what were you doing for a job before you actually quit it to go full-time in real estate?
I was a software developer. So I went to school for 4 years. So software development, right out of college, got a job, worked for the same company for 20 years right here in Hawaii.
Oh, wow. Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, and then you read this purple Bible, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Book.
Got a good idea. Say, hey, I'm going to get into real estate. What did the process look like for you when you got into like your first deal, when you said, okay, when you finally made that decision to, I'm going to invest in real estate, what made you choose to go the route that you did with the BRRRR method to start?
You know, so when I first started, I didn't have really any money. So then like, I mean, I was like, I'm not the most like, I guess, disciplined person, I'd say like whatever money came in, I basically spent it. So I was renting like a place. It was like dirt cheap. It was like $1,100 a month. And it was like a basement of a house. But then like, even though I had like a decent salary for Hawaii, I mean, it wasn't very much considering Hawaii, but whatever money came in, I just spent it either on food or going out or whatever. So then like my goal was passive income, and I needed to build a rental portfolio to build a passive income. But if you don't have any money to start with, then like you can't just go and start buying rentals. So I needed a way to either generate active income or a lot more active income, or build a rental portfolio without using like any money that I had. And so the BRRRR strategy is the perfect like example of that. Is like you, after each BRRRR property you finish, you're into it with none of your money. You know, so like that was like I was like, okay, I was a bigger pockets fan, listened to all Brandon Turner, all those episodes, and they're big BRRRR proponents. And so I was kind of like basically drinking the bigger pockets Kool-Aid. So.
Sure. Yeah, I think anybody that gets into real estate and they eventually find their way to bigger pockets and they start drinking that Kool-Aid too. I know I did.
At the time too, that was like the only source, because there wasn't social media. There wasn't really any other, like there's no other coaching or anything. So like
there wasn't too many other podcasts.
Bigger pockets was pretty much like the only, or like the biggest, like by far source of information and knowledge.
Okay, right on. So you were renting a place, right? And it was you and your wife.
It was just me at the time. I got married in 2019. So yeah.
Okay, congratulations. Awesome. So it was just you were renting a place and then you decided to get into real estate. So did your first property that you bought, was that your first rental, or did you buy your primary residence first?
It was a rental first. I bought probably like 15 houses before like I bought my first primary. Like,
okay. Awesome.
All rentals, like, so.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay. So you started back in 2019, right? And fast forward to today, right? So you bought 15 properties before you even bought your own home to live in. Yeah. What things kind of changed for you, right? You were doing BRRRR, and then you were doing fix and flips too, right? Where are you at today? What does your portfolio look like today?
So now it's actually, I sold up a bunch of like the single families that I had back then. We're talking about this a little bit just because I don't want like it just takes time, energy, and focus away from me. So I just want to like dump those. We have a bunch of commercial properties, like a little bit bigger assets and a little bit higher cash flow. But then like my main focus right now is building more of like active income. So like kind of focusing on the business, flipping houses, doing some ground up construction, and just kind of like building like active income. And then we have like a small rental portfolio now in Hawaii, some Airbnbs and things. But like the focus is more on active income than like the passive side.
Okay, right on. So you kind of went from the W-2 side, having that active income, to the passive side in real estate, and now coming full circle back to focusing on having an active income. Is there a reason behind that?
I just feel like the strategy for growth, and so like it's I can get there a lot faster with active income. Okay. So if you just kind of like do the math of like the reason why I had like rental portfolio in Indianapolis, and they're growing slowly in equity, like small cash flow and things. But if I took all the equity that I had there and then put them back into my business, I feel like I could like 10 or 20x like that money, as opposed to like letting it grow slowly. And so like I just feel like the vehicle that I have now with like the small business that we have with real estate investing is it's a bigger like return than like what my passive portfolio would look like over that period of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So the rental properties that you had, even though they were more, I guess, quote unquote passive, right? But they really weren't, right? How much time and energy were you having to spend on that portfolio, versus what you're doing now on the active side?
To be honest with you, it wasn't completely passive, but it was pretty passive. But because you still have a property manager, and so like you still have to manage your property manager, make sure like, and then getting the P&Ls and things, like making sure things are okay, doing your taxes or whatever. But then like the big thing to me is just like the divided focus. And so like, just because like the business that we have now demands so much attention, and then we have a few different things. We got like a podcast, we got some social media things, plus like some the flipping side is that I wanted to just like basically galvanize all the mental capacity that I had and just focus it in this one lane. And I think it's just like the lane that I think is going to be the biggest return. So like the passive side was like, it was so, and what's really good is like the passive side allowed me the opportunity to take a risk. I think that's like a big thing, is because now that we had the passive portfolio that was like generating income, now I had some extra income inside. I wasn't like worried about like, where's my next paycheck coming from. It allowed me to like take bigger risks on the business side. Okay. And then now these bigger risks are paying off on like on the active income side. And so like now like my plan is, okay, where is the biggest opportunity? And so like, let's shift all the resources that are over here on the passive side, sell them all or sell a bunch of them, transfer them over to the active side, and let this active income kind of grow like faster.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So I feel like with anything you do with investing or even building an active business, there's always going to be risk involved. And, what are some different measures you can do to mitigate that risk? And one of the things that you had was having those properties that provided that additional income, right? So it kind of mitigated some of that risk, that if something happened, you had something to fall back upon, and it wasn't going to be a detriment to you and your family, right? Okay. I think that's huge. So now focusing more on the active side, you're doing ground up construction. What does that look like?
It's the same thing basically as a flip. Like you buy a plot of land, you'll get permits for it, you'll build a little house on it, and then you sell it for a profit. Sometimes you might want to keep it for either tax savings or for like to add to your portfolio. But for the most part, it's the exact same process of flip. It's just the permitting takes slightly longer.
Okay, well, depends on where you're doing it. So where are you doing these at?
We're doing, so we mostly on the Big Island. So like it's
Yeah, permitting here can take some time.
Yeah, it
for
can,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what are some of the things you do to kind of, I guess, mitigate that, right? So if you're doing some ground up constructions and you know it's going to take a while before you can get the permitting and things like that, what are some things you can do in the meantime to kind of make sure that that process is going to go more smoothly once you have everything in place?
I think it just comes down to preparation. So like and a big part of it is just underwriting everything correctly. So like you got to make sure that you have the cash reserves. I think a big part of like our business is it's so cash intensive that if you don't have the cash to be able to like continue to keep the project going, or when the project needs it, because like I feel like projects are like little animals, like they're hungry, like they always want to eat things,
Yeah.
like, so sometimes they need more than expected. So having the cash reserves to be able to stomach the holding times, and then also like the extra renovation costs that could creep up is very important. And then also underwriting your deals like conservatively, like what you think you can sell them for in the back end, whether it's a flip or ground up construction or even like a BRRR.
Okay, that's fair. So with that, are you doing this solely on your own, or do you have people invest with you and then work on these projects with you?
We have a small team like in-house, and we also have investors who are invested like with us. And so we have some of our own money, but also a lot of investor money where like we'll give them a return. We give them a 12% annualized return. And the reason why we did like an annualized paid monthly is that like when I first like reached financial freedom, and then like I had like this monthly income coming in, like it was a game changer for me. Like it allowed me to like, okay, now I can just do what I want. I have like the time freedom, and like my vision for like the fund that we have and the way that we're helping investors is I like to give other people that same like time freedom. So like the consistent monthly cash flow I think is huge. So like let's say somebody invests like $100,000 with us, right? At a 12% annualized, that comes out to $12,000 a year, or $1,000 a month. So we pay them like $1,000 a month. So basically we take the equity or like their liquidity and turn it into cash flow. And so like, that's like a big thing with our fund is like they'll like invest with that in our project. We'll turn it into like a passive income. And then when the project gets finished, they get back the return on their principal.
Oh, that's awesome. So you actually have a real estate fund set up to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fantastic. So for those that are listening right now, what he's talking about with passive income, that is kind of the goal, right? That is the bread and butter for a lot of people that are investing. At least for me, I'm very much a proponent of passive income, especially because of all the other things that I do. It's that time freedom that you get. It's another source of income that you don't have to worry about, right?
Yeah.
So on your podcast, when I was talking with you a little bit about the multifamily side and what I would do to like vet operators and vet deals, what are some things that you do to vet investors that invest with you to know that, you know, the person that you have coming in is solid and that they're going to be good for the investment to bring to the fund?
Honestly, like there's not a whole lot of vetting that goes on. I mean, like they do need to be accredited. So there's a small, like they can like, there's a site that they can use to like submit their documents, or they can either submit their documents directly to us and we can review them. But other than that is like we just want to make sure somebody who's not going to think that they're going to have like a decision making, because just like realize that like when you are investing with us, it is a passive investment and we're going to be making the business decisions. So like but you're free to go check out the projects, you're free to go like view things, and we'll give you like the access and everything. But when it comes to decision making, as long as you're okay with being a passive decision maker, and then as long as you are accredited, then like those are like the only two real.
Okay. Yeah. It seems very similar to multifamily investing. For those that actually do that, this might be another venture or option to look into to build that passive income. So how long typically do the projects go for, right? So like when I invest in multifamily real estate, I know that my money's going to sit there for about 5 years time frame, and I'm going to get my return for the 5 years and then get my capital back at the end of the 5 years. Some people might want something faster than they might want to get their capital back sooner than that. So how long does a typical project take for you on the Big Island?
So for our fund, we have 1 year terms.
Okay.
So basically it's like 1 year term, but typically like the project will be less than a year, but then we'll hold the money until the end of the year term. And then when the year term finishes, the investor will get back the return on their principal. So like it's a 1 year term, you're getting like a monthly paycheck during that time. And then at the end of the term, you don't get any extra interest because it's already paid out during that term. You'll get back the return on the principal at the year term.
Okay. Oh, that's
they can either reinvest it or like buy a car or buy a boat or whatever it is that you want at that point. So
Yeah. Okay. That's fantastic. And then, the extra 1,000 a month that they were making with that 12% annualized return, they could have been saving that or investing into something else, or, building that back up. So the way I'm looking at it is like what would be the best way to compound that? For me, I would probably take, that 1,000 a month and invest it in the stock market, right? And see what I could turn that into. And then when I get the 100,000 back, do the same thing, put it back and just keep reinvesting that money.
A lot of guys, I mean, like that's like from an investor, you're thinking like that. But a lot of our guys are like, they use it for their life. So like, here's the extra $1,000 for like groceries or for my kids' tuition or whatever things is. Or when we had this one story where this lady had like, I guess like her cat, it was very sick. And then so it helped to pay the bills for like the cat's treatment and things. And so just using things for like your daily life, like that you want to use it for. I think that's kind of like, that was the thought process behind the monthly payment. But I mean, as an investor,
I can't turn that
as
off.
an investor, you always want to compound. So we actually have people say, hey, can I just compound it and keep on adding it to every month to like my principal? But just for like the logistics, we're like, sorry, like we're just gonna have to give you the money and then you have to like invest it yourself afterwards. But
okay, yeah, that's fair. All right, so with that going on, what are some other things that you're doing? So I know you have a podcast, right? You're really focusing on growing your social media presence as well. I've seen your Instagram blow up. What is your focus today?
I mean, honestly, the focus really is the business.
Okay.
Just because I think like the social media and the podcast, it kind of helped us to have a bigger audience, whether it's like increasing our network, meeting guys like yourself, other investors, and kind of like increasing our knowledge and our visibility. But then like, it's always like, what's like the biggest return of my time at this point in time? And so the focus shifted to social media for like a little while because I was like, hey, I want to grow my brand. I want to like put myself more out there. I want to like be able to raise more money. I want to do different things. And then so like, that was the biggest return of my time for like that period of time. But so like when I did that, my business took a big like dip because like, hey, you're flipping houses, you're doing things over here. When you put all this energy to social media, now all the bandwidth that you had in the business is like way less, like, and so like it kind of took a dip. But then so we ran social media hard for like about like a year and a half. And then like after that kind of like, okay, where's the next thing? And then so we started like a podcast and like, hey, let's try like put energy to a podcast. And then we've been running it over time. You build systems, you have like some employees or processing things so it gets more smoother and etc. Then this past year we said, let's launch a meetup. So we did like a monthly meetup. And so like, it's just, everything is just like, what's the biggest opportunity that we have now to kind of like to grow or expand? But now after like 2024, our focus is back on like the business, like flipping houses and do some ground construction, a little bit commercial, but like, and a little bit of time on podcasting, a little bit of time on social media, but like for the most part, it's just like the business.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So something I've been hearing you say a lot, or a word that you're mentioning a lot, is time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I kind of talked with you about this on your podcast as well, is a lot of people focus when they invest or get into real estate or anything that they're trying to do to build passive income is to get that time back. And then I think a lot of times we realize as we're building up and we basically start another business, we're not really getting a lot of that time back. So what do you do to build that time equity, to get that time back or buy back the time? Like, how do you improve your efficiencies? What are some different methods you do to get some time back?
It's funny you asked that because when I first started getting into investing initially, the whole point was passive income. I was like, hey, I'm going to like get a hands off. I'm going to retire, live on the beach, drink Mai Tais, and just kind of like play video games and watch Netflix. That was literally like was my goal when I first started.
We all start there. Yeah.
But then once I actually reached that with financial freedom, I realized like, like the point of life is not just cruise and hang out and just chill. Like, like I need to build, I need to create, I need to like do something. And so my goal in life has changed to like, how can I maximize the time here as opposed to just like use it selfishly for myself. So like the more that we are able to like generate financially, the more that we're able to give, the more we're able to impact lives, the more like things like people on our team are able to like have like success, etc. And then also allows me to buy back my personal time so that I can spend time with my wife or take trips or travel, different things. And so like when I'm trying to buy back time now, it's hiring employees, hiring like vendors, third-party things, using technology. But the goal is like half like time with my wife, but also like just more output. Like I just want to like buy back time so then I can like put more time in other areas to like to 10x or put more output from like the machine. If that kind of makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And I like the way you put it, right? The machine, right? Because it's like all these different cogs and nuts and bolts that come together to create this machine of a business that you've built, right? And it's, what do you do to make that machine more efficient? Is do you change the oil that you're using?
Yeah,
you know, how do you upgrade this and upgrade that? There's new technology, or like you said, right? The different things you can do to make the machine more efficient and better, best use, right? Employ, outsource, different things like that. And I'm really glad to hear you say that, because for me too, like as I've been building my businesses and everything else that I do, you know, with my current W-2 job and my investing and my businesses, like, what do I do to get that time back? And I feel like, you know, that I think that's a challenge that so many of us face.
Yeah.
When you get to the point where, I mean, I reached financial independence at the age of 38 and then said, what's next?
Yeah.
Right. And then like I was getting ready to move back to the mainland with my family and didn't really want to, and then found out my family didn't want to leave either. And we were like, we're going to stay in Hawaii. And I was like, well, if we're going to stay in Hawaii, then I'm going to go back to work or do something. Right. So that's what we did. We stayed here. And, you know, with everything that I have going on, it's always been about, what do I do to get more efficient, to get more time with my wife, with my kids, and enjoy this beautiful place that we live, right?
While doing like building business and doing all these
still
things,
still building
right?
and not stagnating, right? And I feel like a lot of times if you lose that focus and you're like, well, I'm going to get my time back. I've done this before. And I focus on getting my time back so much that I stagnate elsewhere, right? And sometimes that could be dangerous. So I really appreciate, you know, your perspective there of what you've done, right? With hiring employees,
there's a couple,
and buying
I think maybe
back
a couple
that time.
hacks that I think that's like, can like apply to everybody. Is one thing
You
is
used the
like,
H word. All right, what are the hacks?
yeah, it's like one like maybe like hiring like a landscaper, right? So you don't have to do yard work, right? Things like, and we also have a cleaner that comes to our house like every 2 weeks and just makes sense. So like we don't have to, I don't have to think about those things. Like wash my laundry, like clean like the shower, those things, right? And so like basically you're buying time so that you can do either spend time with your family or your business. And then we also have somebody that we hire once a week that comes in and spends 8 hours once a week. And it's just like a task list. And so like throughout the week, I'm like, hey, I got to pick up groceries for this. I've got to like clean this. I got to set up this Ring camera. I've got to like pick up this thing from like the store. I got to pick up my mail, all the different things. And like there's a task list that kind of accumulates over the week. And then on the every Friday, this person will come in for 8 hours, look through the task list, jam it out, like wash my car, like vacuum my whatever. And then so like it buys me back 8 hours of my time, which to me is like super valuable, right? And so like you're paying 100%. For it, but then now like I can take those hours that I would have spent grocery shopping or doing other things, etc., and like applying them to like a higher leverage activity, which is filming a podcast, social media, maybe having a big meeting, or like maybe investing in some tech, etc. And so
yeah, absolutely. So at your next meetup, can you talk about that? I'm going to drag my wife along.
Maybe.
I've actually been saying, like, I actually been wanting to hire somebody to come clean the house once a week, right? And she like refuses.
It's part of it is like a little bit of a pride thing too, because
it is.
It's like you feel threatened, like, hey, somebody else is coming in and like I feel like this is like my job or like my territory, my domain, right? So yeah. So it's tough. And plus we have teenage daughters, so it's like, you know, they need to do stuff too. And we need to keep them employed as well. Yeah. No, I mean, that's for some free labor. So,
well, no, I mean, I'll pay them, you know, I pay them like to wash the cars and stuff like that. Pay them for chores and things, but they got to do it.
Yeah.
Right. If they're not doing the chores, they're not going to get paid, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, so one of the things though that I've found difficult for myself is when you do get some of that time freedom back, how do you make that decision of what you're going to spend that time doing, right? So for me, if I get some of that time back, it's like, well, I want to spend more time with my family, or, hey, I want to schedule this big meeting and do that. Like one of the things I took advantage of, the fact that I'm off the rest of this week and you had some availability, I had some availability. I'm usually not available during the week, and we were able to schedule to make these podcasts happen today. So that to me was a great way to spend that time. But what do you do when you get some of that free time? What is like the first thing that comes to your mind when you get that 8 hours back?
I mean, to be honest with you, like I think like I'm not the most intentional person, which I should be more of. I just know that like I don't want to spend it watching Netflix and YouTube, because that's a natural thing for me to do. Is like, okay, like I have like nothing to do. let's turn on Netflix and YouTube and just kind of like veg out. And so like
the new Squid Game is awesome.
Or like whatever like on your phone or Instagram scrolling, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
my goal is just not to do that. So as long as I'm doing something productive, I feel okay. Working in the business, learning, listening to a podcast, spending time with my wife or like family, as long as it's something along those lines. And then sometimes like different parts of your life are like need different attention. So like if my wife is like, hey, I need more attention this week, honey. Okay, let's spend more time here. Or the business has some fires that needs like more attention. And so it's just whatever is kind of like needs the attention at that moment. And if I don't have that, it's like, hey, let's just set some time aside to just think and plan. And I think having time every week to just sit alone and think has been really, really helpful. And so like there's a book called like The Road Less Traveled, highly recommend it. But basically it's like at the end of every chapter is a list of questions where you just like get a piece of paper and a notepad or your iPad or whatever it is, and just think through these questions and think like, hey, what can I like think through this week or this hour to help either move my business or my life forward, you know?
Okay, that's great. So is that one of the things that you feel that has helped you discipline yourself to do that with your time? Because I feel like probably one of the things I struggle with the most, and probably a lot of people out there struggle with the most, is that discipline piece with you have that free time. How do you prevent yourself from like doom scrolling on Instagram or sitting down and watching the entire season of Squid Game in like a day? Like how do you prevent yourself from doing that?
I mean, like it just, I still do at times. One of the things to a small hack is like if you're by yourself and you're watching Netflix or like Squid Games, it's not productive. But if you're with your wife or somebody and you're watching together, now it's quality time. So like it's kind of like that. I mean, like just for like a small hack. That's is fair. Like so even video games, like, you know, like when I used to be like an avid video game like player back in the day, but I was like, it was such a time sink that I swore off video games because like this is just like a huge waste of my life. But my wife wanted to play Zelda when it came out like a few years back, and I was like, okay, like now that we're playing it together, it's quality time. It's not like me just vegging out and like being selfish. So
you didn't feel like it was just wasting your time away.
You're doing something together, right? It's with your wife.
It's less of that selfish enjoyment. And being.
I consider it productive. So like if you're watching like a show with your wife or your family, or you're playing a board game or like a video game with your family, now you're interacting and you're having family time as opposed to just Netflix time, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's fair. Okay. So that's great. So yeah, different ways to get your time back. There's several different ways, outsourcing, hiring, the things that you've done. I like the fact that if you take that time and you're spending that time with your significant other or, your family, and you're watching that show, you can count that now as quality time. So that's a good way to get around it. So actually, every time my kids ask me to play Roblox and stuff with them, I can count that as quality time.
No, but I mean, if you think about it, right? So like when you look back in your life and like you're 80 or whatever it is, and you're looking back at like different things you did, the time you spend playing Roblox with your kids, that's like solid time that you won't want to change that, but if you play Roblox by yourself, 100%. You'll be like, dude, I just wasted my time like playing Roblox. But if it was with your kids, like that's a completely different story.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. All right, Daniel, I really feel like we hit a lot of very important things, especially for entrepreneurs and folks that are, getting into real estate or already doing it actively, or somebody that has an active business, like the different ways to get some of that time back. Because I feel like that is one of the hardest things, and probably the most valuable asset we have is time, because it's finite, right? It does end for us. There is an end at the end of the road, right? It does stop. And the thing is, when you get to that end of life time frame, you want to be able to look back, like you said, when you're 80 years old and say, did I spend that quality time? So I think that's super important. I'm really glad that we got to cover that today. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and transition this into something I call the final round. Okay. I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on the show, and it kind of gives us a better look at how you are under a little bit of pressure, even though they're not hard questions. So you ready to go?
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, let's kick it off. So the first question I have for you is, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your personal finances or business life?
I think, the biggest mistake I'd say is just not taking like my finances serious earlier. I think like when I just like, I kind of just had like my head in the sand, I would say, for like the like 20 years of my life after college, where like it was good enough. It was like to not be like so I didn't have like credit card debt, but it was good enough to just kind of get by. But I didn't like realize what was possible or was out there.
Okay.
So like, if I knew what was available or was possible, I think I would have made like that transition a lot sooner. I'd be a lot further ahead in life than where I am right now, at least financially. So
okay, no, that's fair, 100%. Okay. This next question, these kind of tie into each other, and that is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started this out?
Let's see. I think one thing that I learned a lot is like the power of networking. I think a lot of times even now when I think about networking, you think about just sitting down and talking to people and like you think it's boring and you think it's like not productive. But then like the networking and even coaching has like really like, it's like it unlocks possibility, or it transforms what you believe and what you see in the world. And so I think like whenever we can have like higher level conversations with guys who are like farther ahead than us, I think it literally transforms like your life and your opportunities to like, once you can see it, then you can do it. But until you can actually like believe it and see it, it's really hard for you to really accomplish it.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I like that. All right. Next question, again, kind of ties into it. Do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is now just getting started out?
I think the biggest thing would be take action quickly. So I think a lot of times like you learn something and then like you sit on it or you wait and then like, you procrastinate and you don't do it, or like it never happens, or you take action way later. But I think like as soon as you read something in the book, put the book down, do it, and like to see what happens, and then like go move on to the next thing. Don't like get so much information and overload and like not take action. But as soon as you have an opportunity to take action, make mistakes, and just like kind of move the ball down forward like quicker, and then have like that feedback. Okay, so you're gonna get stuck. Okay, now go back to like trying to learn something next. Okay, as soon as you figure that out, then take action again. So the faster you can do that cycle of like taking action and learning, the faster you're gonna kind of like succeed.
Yeah, I like that. Fail forward, fail fast.
Yeah.
So
and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the key thing, right? Keep going, keep moving the ball down to the goalpost, and you'll get there. I love it. Okay, this final question of the final round is completely different than the rest. It's an opinion-based question, but do you have a favorite real estate related or investing or business related book or podcast or both?
I mean, I think the book that changed my life was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I've got to give that a nod. As far as like the podcast, or I'm going to even throw like my mentor in that is like Ryan Pineda. I really like the way that he's built his like business and also his life. Like the balance of faith, family, and business, I think is like very tricky for us to like navigate at times. Sure. So I think like he does a really good job of kind of like navigating like the three together and having a lot of success at the same time. So
okay, right on. I love it. So that's it for the final round. I do have another question I want to ask you. And this is the most important question I'm going to ask you for this entire podcast, because people that are listening right now, they were like, I felt like I learned something here listening to Daniel speak, and I want to learn more. So where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website? I know you have a podcast because I was just a guest on it. Where can people go listen to your podcast? Where can they find out more information about you?
I think the best place is just Instagram, Daniel Kong 808. So just like keep it simple. Instagram, Daniel Kong 808. Come send me a message. I'd love to like connect with you and see how we can collaborate together.
Awesome. Okay, I'll make sure I have that in the show notes to make it easy for our listeners. And you guys know the drill. If you're driving right now, don't sit here and try to write this down or put it, just wait till you get somewhere safe. Okay, I really appreciate it. I do want to ask you, though, to close things out, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Let's see. I mean, like I have so many thoughts. I mean, number one, thank you for having us on or having me on your show. I think the biggest thing is just reiterate the importance of taking action. I think a lot of times it's what's easy to do is also easy not to do. And I think a lot of times it's easy for us to just learn something and not apply it and just like, and think that our life is eventually going to move forward, when it's going to take, you actually have to do it. And so like, as soon as you have like an opportunity to take action, don't think about it. Don't like, just do it. And then do the next thing, so
don't think about it, be about it.
Yeah. Just do it. Yeah. I love that.
I love it. Just do it. Hey, don't sue us, Nike. Okay. It's a phrase. Okay. Awesome. Hey, Daniel, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate, one, you letting me use your studio here to interview you, and two, taking the time to sit down with me today and talk on the show. I really appreciate it.
Same. Appreciate you too, man.
Yeah. Awesome. And hey, I also want to say thank you to all of my listeners. I want to thank every single one of you for joining me and our special guest, Daniel Kong, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Daniel. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.